All right. Hello, everybody. This is Howard Storm, and I'm with Corey Odo, and we are doing a series on this book, My Descendant to Death by Howard Storm. And we've been going over it chapter by chapter and also doing some question and answer sessions too, and we'll do some more of those. But today we're going to do chapter 15, and the title is Limbo. And of course, I'm not referring to the limbo dance. I'm referring to the idea that there's a place that's neither heaven nor hell where souls have gone to. And I don't want to really talk about that very much because I wrote limbo because when I came back, I knew I wasn't in heaven and I knew I wasn't in hell. And so I was stuck in between. It's called Earth, life, reality, whatever you want to call this place. And I was stuck here and I didn't want to be here. And I didn't want to be in hell, of course. I wanted to be in heaven. And I found elements of hell in this world. And I found elements of heaven in this world. And I was like, why am I in this place? I want to go to the better place, the heaven place, where it's all joy and happiness and peace and love and goodness. You know, in this place, I got to deal with cruelty and evil and ridicule and, put downs and rejection and blah, 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 all the time. I don't know about you, but, one of the people that I talk to, life's a struggle. Life's difficult, they're always dealing with problems, suffering, difficulties, things like that. So life in this world is not easy. And I've never met anyone who thought that it was. Now, maybe you find it all peace and love and joy. And God bless you if you do, but I've not met anyone that's had that experience. When you talk to people and get to know them, what you find out is that they're all struggling. Everyone's struggling. Everyone's kind of in a battle between good and evil, between happiness and misery. Anyhow, so that's what this chapter is about. And I want to go over the chapter, what's in the book, because this was how I kind of found my way through this world right after that near-death experience. And we all have to find our way. I was talking to a woman in Colorado last night for a long time, and she's going through a lot of battles. There's times when she feels suicidal and really depressed and things like that. And I was trying to tell her, you got to take the insults and injuries and move past them, put them behind you, and look to the good things. And she did it. There were good things in her life, and a lot of it depends on what you focus on. Let me just say, I asked Jesus, why would you send me back to the world when there's so much evil and cruelty in the world? And he said, there is evil and cruelty in the world, but there's also good and there's love and there's beauty in the world. And he said, what you look for is what you're going to find. What's in your heart is what you're going to attract. And you know what? Surprise, surprise, Jesus was right. We do attract what's in our heart. If you are a loving person, you attract loving people. If you look for goodness, you find goodness. If you look for beauty, you find beauty. And I try and stay focused on those things. And I try and let the bad stuff that comes into my life, and believe me, there's plenty of that comes into my life. I try and just let it go and move on. Um, if you're on a walk and you stumble and fall, you get up and you keep going, or you can lie there and wallow in self-pity and misery. I mean, I know that sounds pretty simplistic, but it really is kind of that way, frankly. It is kind of that simple. Get up and move on, and keep your sights on the good things, not on the bad things. Anyhow, so after my experience and after my hospitalization, I started reading a lot because I was home recuperating. I was very weak. I couldn't work and couldn't do anything. So I was reading, didn't watch much TV because I found the TV to be very disappointing in every respect. And wasn't much on TV that I thought was worthwhile. And I got books on Buddhism and Hinduism and the Quran and all kinds of books. And I was reading the Bible mostly, but reading other books and other religions to see, to compare them to the Bible. I found the Bible to be much more consistent with the Jesus that I knew and the God that Jesus tried to reveal to me than the other religions. But that's another story. A non-friend of mine, Sister Dolores, told me to read Thomas Merton. So I got a bunch of Thomas Merton books. Now, he was a Trappist monk who coincidentally lived in Kentucky. And he became a big influence on me. I still read books by Thomas Merton. I recommend them to people. And I've been down to the monastery where he died a long time ago in the late 60s. But anyways, I've gone down to the monastery many times because it's a really beautiful place, wonderful place to pray in serenity. So reading Thomas Merton and being influenced by him and his wisdom, and developing a relationship with him, with Thomas Merton, trying to get to know him and visiting where he lived and worked, really helped me a lot. Now, I got to tell you a story. So my near-death experience happened June 1st, 1985. I was in the hospital for a few months, things like that, and started going to church and developed a relationship with the pastor there. And I asked him if he was interested in going to the Abbey of Gethsemane, which is where Thomas Merton was from. I'd never been there, nor had he. And he said, yeah, let's go. So we did a day trip down there. It was about a 3-hour drive. And a couple of big things happened to me. So first illustration, seek and ye shall find. And that's what I'm going to tell you 2 things. The first one was they have a cemetery outside the at the actual church, the building in the center of the monastery, and got all the graves of the monks, and all the graves are identical, and there's not much information on the graves. So there was a monk who's assigned to host visitors. And so we asked him if he would take us to the grave of Thomas Merton. And he said, well, yes, I will, but you need to know his name in the monastery was Father Lewis. So, well, that's good to know because there was no grave with Thomas Merton on it. It was Father Lewis. So we went to his grave site and the monk left us. And my pastor friend, who's quite a bit older than I was, there was a bench nearby. So he sat down and I went over and I stood in front of the grave of Father Lewis, and I prayed. And I was thanking Thomas Merton for his books and his wisdom and his inspiration, and da da da, and how much he meant to me and all that stuff. And prayed for a while there, standing there. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a young monk appeared, probably in his mid or late 20s. And I didn't see him coming. All of a sudden, he was standing next to me. And he had a book in his hand. And he opened up the book to a page and he said, "Read this." And it was a poem written by Thomas Merton about the graveyard at the Abbey of Gethsemane. So I read the poem, and it was quite beautiful and meaningful about what that graveyard with, I don't know, more than 100 monks buried there, maybe 200 or 300. I don't know. It's pretty good size. And I read it, and it meant a lot to me. And I closed the book and I handed it back to the monk. And I looked away for a moment, and he was gone. The whole thing was kind of mysterious because he seemed to come from nowhere, and then he disappeared from nowhere. Now, there's no doors. We're in the middle of a cemetery, big stone wall on one side, and then the fence with one gate in on the other side. Like, who was that guy? Where'd he come from? Where'd he go? So I went over to my friend, my pastor, Bill, who was sitting on a bench about 20 feet away from me, facing me. And I said, "Did you see the monk that just came up to me and lent me the book?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Did you see where he came from?" And he said, "No, he just kind of appeared out of nowhere." And I said, "Well, when I handed him back the book, I looked away from it and he was gone." And I said, "Where'd he go?" And he said, "He just disappeared. I don't know where he went." And I said, "Were you watching me?" And he said, "Yeah, the whole time." And I said, "You saw him come up here from nowhere and disappear from nowhere?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "That whole thing was strange." He said, "Yeah, it was very strange, but I saw it too." The pastor said, "I saw it too." Later on, in another book about Thomas Merton, I saw pictures of him when he was young. Guess who he looked like? The man that I met in the cemetery. It looked like the young Thomas Merton. I believe, you could take it for what it's worth, that Thomas Merton came to me, had me read one of his poems, and then left. For me, it was like a huge affirmation of my appreciation of, remember I said a couple minutes ago, "Seek and ye shall find." Happens a lot, but you got to make the effort, you got to go there. You got to do it. I've had many wonderful retreats in my life. But they're a sacrifice. I mean, you got to give up everything, time, energy. And sometimes when you go on a retreat, the first few days it feels like a big waste of time. It's really frustrating. And then after a while, you get what you're looking for. Okay, moving on. I started going to church every Sunday, got real involved in it, got interested in it. And after a number of months, one of the things that was really bothering me about hunger, just there's all these hungry people in the world. What are we doing about it? I don't know. That just became like really big thought in my mind. Didn't find any answers. One day I'm at church. Pastor invited a young woman to get up. Her name was Judy. And she got up to talk about her experience working at a soup kitchen in Cincinnati. And so she gave her talk, and I thought it was really interesting. And she said, if anybody has any questions or has any interest in working in the soup kitchen, come see me after the service. So I did. Matter of fact, I was the only one that went up and talked to her. And she was real nice, and she told me where she went and who ran it and all about it and stuff like that. And if I wanted to ever experience it or give it a try, how to get in contact. So I did. And the next Saturday, after that Sunday, I went to the soup kitchen at 9 o'clock in the morning to help prepare the food, which was served at 12 o'clock lunch in another location in really probably the very, very poorest part of Cincinnati. And this soup kitchen was at a United Church of Christ Mission Church in Camp Washington. Pastor's name was Jim Egbert, who later became very, very important in my life. A very dear man that I love very much. Probably the biggest reason why I went into ministry was because of him and his influence. And anyhow, we made soup and sandwiches and then took them over to our location and served 200 or 300 people, soup and sandwiches. Then gathered this stuff up, took it back to the church and cleaned up, which took a couple hours, cleaning all the pots and pans and cleaning the stove and the meat slicer and all that stuff. And I told this minister, because I was one of the few people that was there to help him, that I'd come back the next week. And I did. And the next week, and the next week, and the next week, and the next week. And I kept every Saturday. And then more and more he trusted me, and more he gave me responsibilities. And pretty soon I was doing most of the work, and he was busy doing his pastoral stuff. And then after a while, I said, do you want me to just take responsibility for this? And he said, yeah, you do it. And so I became the soup kitchen guy. Now, few things happened that are pretty interesting. One is, there were times when we had nobody show up to help us, me and the Jim Egbert. So just me and him, and sometimes one or two people would show up. I thought, I can get more help. There's got to be a lot more people like me if I go around and ask churches if they want to come work at the soup kitchen on a Saturday morning, serve a meal. So I did that, and pretty soon I had 20, 30 people showing up every Saturday morning. The other thing that happened was, because of Jim's very limited financial resources to do this, and because of what little help he had, it was like sandwiches and soup. I mean, as simple as possible. I mean, it was food, but it wasn't anything great. So I decided that I wanted to turn it into like a real meal, like a Sunday family dinner. So anyways, I talked to Jim about it. He said, fine, but there's no money. So you got to figure out how to get this stuff. So he told me about different wholesale produce distributors in Cincinnati that might give me a donation. So I started visiting them regularly, usually on Wednesday or Thursday, in preparation. So like I was working full time, but I would steal away and go to the produce people either early in the morning or in the late afternoon and ask them if they had any stuff they give me. And sometimes they'd give me cases of things, like if the produce is ripe or past ripe, they can't give it to a grocery store or anything. I mean, it's no longer, it's going into the dump. It's going to be thrown away. I'm talking about big cases. And so they give me that stuff. And sometimes most of it was good. Sometimes it was all good. And sometimes most of it was rotten. And I'd go through and pull out the good pieces out of it, and throw the rest away. But all of this was like, a box of carrots or a box of lettuce or a box of apples or kiwis or potatoes or whatever. And all that stuff had to be prepped, clean, chopped, cooked, So it was like a lot of work. So all those volunteers, I kept them real busy. I mean, we worked as hard as we could to get that meal ready because we had to get it in the van or my truck by 11:30 to drive it over to the soup kitchen and set up and have it ready because we had to serve at 12 o'clock. So anyways, we worked real hard. And sometimes if necessary, I'd go in on Friday and maybe get some help to go with me, and we'd do some preparation Friday night because I knew there was too much prep to do on Saturday morning to get the meal ready. One of the problems with running a soup kitchen is nobody will give you protein. By protein, I'm talking meat and dairy. You got to buy that stuff. There's no free protein. There's no free meat. There's no free dairy products. So I'm talking about butter and milk and stuff like that, and which you need for cooking. And there's no free meat. And of course, the people in the soup kitchen want some meat, and I want to give them meat. So I prayed and prayed and prayed for money because I was buying this stuff out of my pocket, and it was getting expensive. I'm talking like 50 or $100, to buy some meat. And guy gave me a check for $5,000. That kept me going for a long time. After that, I'd pray for money, and the money would come. People give me $50 or $20 or $100 or whatever. And most of the time I had the money to buy meat. So when the people came to the soup kitchen, we served. I would look for good deals with the meat. I mean, I didn't go pull stuff out of the grocery store shelf. I mean, I'd deal with distributors and wholesalers and stuff like that. Get I think it was like 60-pound box of frozen chickens, or I'd get a case of hams, and pay something like 40 cents a pound for the ham. I mean, they're looking for deals. So you get, sausages. I found a sausage manufacturer that would sell me sausages wholesale, get these great big huge boxes of sausages, things like that. One time I got a whole bunch of frozen turkeys. When I thawed them out, they were all slightly bad. But I asked Reverend Jim, who was quite a cook, what to do. I said, these turkeys are a little past. And he said, oh, cover them with pepper gravy. They'll taste just fine. So I went and got a whole bunch of powdered pepper gravy mix, and we cooked the turkey. We sliced the turkey up and cooked it in pepper gravy, and they loved it. Nobody noticed that the turkey was a little bit. These turkeys have been frozen for a long time. They were freezer burned, and nobody noticed that they were. The pepper gravy covered the taste. Anyhow, I did that for many years, that Saturday soup kitchen. And then when I became a full-time pastor, it was getting to be too much. So I started backing off, and I just, there are lots of capable people doing it who'd become regulars, and I kind of backed out and only did it on special occasions. It was a wonderful ministry. We worked really hard and really, really developed some very strong relationships with the people that I referred to as my clientele, which were people that came to a Saturday noon soup kitchen for a meal. And when I got to know them, you know what? They all had stories. And I believe these people because I had a relationship with them. Their stories were real, like, had debilitating conditions and weren't able to work anymore and were living on government assistance. And, after they paid the rent and the heating bill and stuff like that, they had very little money left for food. And that's why they went to the soup kitchen. Sometimes when people come in and they clearly were drug addicts, they're clearly, life was a mess, and you go over and try and talk to them. I didn't try and fix anybody or change anybody. I wasn't a social worker, it's not my job. My job was to feed them and to make them feel welcome and like we cared. And the people that worked at the soup kitchen, I always told them, the Spirit of Christ is in you, show it to these people, and the Spirit of Christ is in them, and look for it in them. And you know what? Things went beautifully. And the people that came and worked at the soup kitchen typically told me that it was a wonderful experience. We weren't there to change them. We weren't there to fix them. We were there to love on them. And the way that we loved on them was by giving them a delicious meal and treating them with respect. So like when they came into the line, say, we've got broccoli, we've got carrots, and we've got peas. Which would you like, or do you want all three or two of them? Today we've got ham and we've got sausage. Which would you like? And we always made enough food so that there would be seconds. And almost everybody, we gave them a nice big plate of food, and there would be a salad and there would be fruit and stuff like that. And most of the people came and got seconds. Sometimes people came for thirds. And if we had the food, we'd give them thirds. But they gave the food away. The most popular meal we ever had, one time, I got a bunch of chicken. So I decided, well, I'll make a treat. We'll do barbecue chicken. Well, that was kind of a mistake because there was kind of like a food riot. The word got out in the street that we were serving really good barbecue chicken, and people were coming from all over the neighborhood for the free barbecue chicken. It was pretty funny. I just said, I can't do the barbecue chicken anymore because it's way too popular. Anyhow, it was a great experience. I loved doing it. I learned a lot. And it's just about just do something. I talked about going down to the Abbey of Gethsemane, seek and ye shall find. Well, if you wanna know God, serve the poor. I tell people that all the time. People say, well, I'd like to know God. I'd like to believe in God. I'd like to, I said, okay, serve the poor. That's how you do it. You do that and you will find God in them, and hopefully they'll find God in you. And in that exchange between serving them and loving on them and them loving you back, you're going to know God in there. I want to talk about another big change that happened to me. When I came back, I didn't want to do the kind of paintings that I'd done before because they felt like they were empty. And so I wanted to do paintings that were more spiritual, that I try and express spiritual things. So my paintings became very different than what I had been doing before. And I had two galleries that showed my work, and I very rarely sold some of my work and stuff like that. One in Louisville and one in Cincinnati, two good galleries. And so as time went by, I took my new paintings, my new work to the galleries, and both of them were horrified. And I said, we can't sell this stuff. Nobody would buy this stuff. So, whoops. Well, I just destroyed my career as an artist. I thought I was going somewhere, exhibiting work, galleries and shows and stuff like that. And now nobody wants any part of it. So I said, well, I'll keep doing my paintings, but I don't have a gallery. I don't seek galleries, and I don't submit work in shows or anything like that because, as far as I can tell, the art world has no interest in what I'm doing. I have a website, and I've got paintings on there, and I've sold a number of paintings from that website. And interestingly enough, the paintings that I've sold mostly from the website are the spiritual ones. Another way that I really grew was in the Catholic Church. It's called a cursillo, which is Spanish for a little course, and that's like a 3.5 day retreat thing that the Catholic Church does. In the Protestant Church, they do the exact same thing, but they call it the Emmaus Walk. But as far as I know, they're almost identical in every way. So I did the Emmaus Walk at a big Methodist church in Cincinnati. Went there Thursday afternoon, evening, and it was over on Sunday afternoon. We slept in sleeping bags on the floor of the Methodist church in between time. Now, in the Cursillo and the Emmaus Walk, it's like either a men's weekend or a women's weekend. And they actually have one for teenagers too. I don't know that much about that, but anyway, so there's 3 different types. The walk that I went on, there were probably about 70 men. And one of the rules is the walk is you are not allowed to tell anyone your last name, and you're not allowed to tell anyone what you do for a living. And you're divided up into what are called tables, so like 6 or 8 guys to a table. And those were the guys that you pretty much hung out with and that you met with and had discussions, stuff like that. So you got to know the guys at your table. One of the interesting things is that there was this one guy, I thought he was kind of rough and crude. I figured he was probably a truck driver or something. And there was another guy that was very articulate and well-educated, and I thought he must be like a doctor or a professor or a lawyer or something like that. On Sunday, when it's over, you're allowed to tell each other who you are and what you do for a living. And I found out the guy that I thought was the truck driver was a surgeon. And the guy that I thought was a professor or a lawyer or something like that was a truck driver. It's just really interesting. In the Emmaus Walk, they don't want you to judge people. So that's why you're not supposed to reveal what you do for a living and stuff like that. You know how it is. It's like you judge people by how they're dressed. You judge people by where they live. You judge people by what their occupation is. They own a big company. It's like, woo, impressive. Somebody important. There's some little menial worker. Well, they're nobody. They're stupid, right? They don't know much. That's how we judge. I mean, I'm not bragging about this. I'm ashamed of it, but like we're very judgmental people, and we judge people like boom right away by their appearance. And one of the things they wanted us to learn in Emmaus Walk is like, don't judge. And so that was one of the big things. But on the Emmaus Walk, the whole point is to build a closer relationship with God, with Jesus. And I found it extremely helpful. And all the men at my table. Let me just illustrate. One of the things, do a lot of, in the Emmaus Walk, we did a lot of singing. And we'd have a couple of guitarists who were good. They were volunteers, but they were professional musicians. They come and then lead us and sing. And partway through the walk, after lunch, the guy singing, we're singing, How Do I Love Jesus? An old-timey, simple song. And they would walk over a table and they would ask an individual to stand up and sing it solo. Now I'm talking about grown men. Youngest would be in their 30s, the oldest would be in their 60s. These are all real men, I mean, they're them. And they'd get up and sing about loving Jesus, and they would all cry like a baby. It was like really powerful. A lot of really incredible, supernatural, miraculous things happen on that Emmaus walk. And I've talked to other people that have done Cursillos, that have done Emmaus walks, and they all say it's been one of the biggest events in their lives. So I'm just telling you, if you don't have to belong to the church, you call up to a Methodist church somewhere. They're the ones that, not always, but typically the ones that are sponsoring Emmaus walks, and see if they are giving one near you. It's free, it doesn't cost anything. It just costs you 3.5 days of your life. You grow a lot in faith in your relationship with God by doing something like that. I believe that we are in this world to develop spiritually. And in my life review and in my conversation with Jesus, how much wealth you've acquired, how much power you've acquired, how much fame you've acquired in this world is meaningless. To God, it's like, yeah, so what? What did you do with your life? And what he wants to know what you do, how have you developed in your relationships, in your love, in your spiritual development. That's what he wants to know about. And that's what we're here for. And so what I did in this chapter was talk about a few of the things that were really important in my early spiritual development. And trust me, I'm still trying to develop spiritually. I'm still on that journey, and I got a million stories of how that is still going on in my life. I'm still trying to seek ways to develop spiritually and to grow. We are in a process in this world. And when we die, that process continues when we go on into real life, into our next life. That process development. And the goal is to become like Christ. And nobody in their right mind, no sane person in this world has ever felt that they have achieved that process in this world. That process is called sanctification, becoming really holy. If you read the lives of the saints, they'll tell you they didn't do it either, but they got closer than most of us did. So we just do the best we can and develop as much as we can. And we trust in God that that process is going to continue, and it is going to continue. And sometime in our future, we will be important instruments of God and higher than the angels and Christ-like, each in our own way. Now, one of my works that I do, one of my ministries, to be ministering means to serve. One of the ways that I serve God is, over time, I've developed a lot of correspondence with people all over the world. And I try and respond appropriately to them. And sometimes these correspondence develop into a virtual friendship. And this friend of mine, he's a doctor in Germany, pediatrician. His name is Harold Wang. And he wrote me, he's been watching these videos that Corey Odo has been putting out, and he had a couple of questions that he asked if I would address. So these are for Harold, who's a very wonderful person from what I can tell. And his first question is, if repenting your sins before God can change your life review, might it also change the life review of others who are participating in a situation of sinning? Maybe the ones sin against. It's an interesting question. Jesus told me that we can change our life review by repenting and asking for forgiveness. And then in our life review, that stuff that we've let go of, that we've been forgiven for, if we've let it go, it's gone. I mean, it's so cool. You can edit your life review now. And all that stuff that you're carrying around, like Morley in the Dickens story, Christmas Carol, Morley's carrying around all these heavy chains of all of his sins and the things that he feels ashamed of and regret and guilt. You can get rid of it now. And you can get rid of it by confessing it, repenting it, and asking for forgiveness. God's not a trickster. If you say, God, you do that and you ask God to forgive you, you're forgiven. It's not only is it forgiven, it's gone. It's history. It's like, it is no more. And so when you have your life review, you're not going to have to deal with that stuff. And if you're going to heaven, you are going to get a life review, by the way. That's your judgment. Because you get to see what you did with your life. But his question is, might it also change the life reviews of others? Interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. The reason why I don't know is because I didn't ask and Jesus didn't tell me. I think with all things with God, all things are possible. And so it is possible that the things that we let go of, that we confess, repent, and ask for forgiveness of, might also have some kind of interesting effect on the lives of other people. When you forgive someone for something, they don't necessarily forgive you. One of the false assumptions about forgiveness is just that if you forgive someone, they have to forgive you too. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. You forgive them and they may still hate your guts. That's their problem. But if you forgive them, maybe somehow it's going to soften them. Maybe not. It's their choice. So if it softens them, if the love you've shown them by forgiving them can affect them, that would definitely affect their life review, right? Makes sense. Okay, the second question. The evil one is often called the Lord of this world. Might this mean that he is the evil force of this one planet, our Earth, and do other planets have their own evil one? Or is it he nevertheless the evil force in all creation, including other planets and other dimensions? Yes. The evil one does think he's the Lord of the world. Matter of fact, he told Jesus in the temptation, when Jesus went out into the wilderness for 40 days, right after his baptism, John the Baptist, the evil one said, I am the Lord of this world, and I have all the power and I can give it to you. I mean, that's like in the Bible, when Jesus died on the cross, the atonement, sacrificed himself and died on the cross and was resurrected. He gave us an alternative to the Lord of this world, which is Jesus Christ. So there is a Lord of this world, but he doesn't have to be your Lord. Matter of fact, you can have a Lord who's far more powerful than he is, and the evil one's not ruling over your life. Without an intimate and powerful relationship with God, you're in the hands of the evil one. I know that sounds pretty bleak, and it is bleak, but you cannot be a godly person without God. I mean, like, hello, right? How can you be a godly person without God? And I'm not saying, oh yeah, I believe in God, but I do what I want to do. No. If you're a godly person, then you're doing your best to be obedient to God's commandments and following the way of Christ, etc. In other worlds, I asked Jesus about other worlds, and he said, we're pretty low on the scale of good and bad in the universe. And there's a lot of worlds where they have eliminated evil. There is no evil in their worlds. And he said there's a lot of worlds like that, where they have literally achieved heaven on earth, but not our earth, their earth, their planet. But there are other worlds that are struggling with evil like we do. And so one of the great hopes of this world, which is in Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24, it's also in the book of Revelation. I prefer the words of Jesus and how it all plays out in Matthew 24 than the book of Revelation. But anyways, God wants to do a whole new reset on this planet. And it has names like the apocalypse. It has names like the end times and new heaven and a new earth and things like that. It's got lots and lots of misunderstanding about it. But basically, we are going to have heaven on earth someday in this world, hopefully sooner rather than later. And in the book of Revelation, it says quite explicitly, Satan and all the demons and all the evil will be thrown into the lake of fire and will be no more. Gone. History finished. So that day's coming, and our job right now is to make the world as good a place as possible, and most especially love our neighbor as ourselves. And that means trying to nurture and encourage people to have a relationship with God. And one of the things that you need to remember when you do that is everybody's on a spiritual journey, whether they know it or not. And you got to love them and take them and accept them where they're at. So whether their life is the most repulsive, despicable thing that you can think of, love them where they're at. I mean, if they're criminals and they're, doing all kinds of bad stuff, love them where they're at and try and get them out of that life. See an alternative to the way that they're living. And if they're really good people and they're really holy, encourage them to keep on doing what they're doing, and support them in that activity. And then everything in between. I mean, I just use as examples two extremes, but most of us are in between there. And so we try and encourage people to follow the right path and avoid evil as much as they possibly can. So that's chapter 15 on limbo. And we'll be doing chapter 16 next time. So God bless you, and thanks for listening.
Great. I like those questions your friend asked. Henry or Harry, I think you said his name was?
Harold.
Okay. Good questions. I was actually going to ask you something like that. So he kind of got my answer for me. So I appreciate that. I won't ask any questions, although each time I watch a video with you, about 10 questions pop into my mind, but it's take another whole video to answer them all. So, but I do appreciate you doing the videos for us. And I guess I'll see you whenever you're available next for chapter 16, I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the subtitle of it right now, but we'll find it out by next week. All right. Well, thanks very much, Howard. God bless you. And
hey, Corey, I want to tell you, I got some crocuses in bloom in my yard,
Oh, right on.
and I have some daffodils that have buds on them, but they haven't opened up yet. So I'm not trying to make you feel bad because I think you're probably still in the grip of winter.
Yes.
But we're getting some signs of spring. You know, crocuses are crazy because they're the first thing to come up. You got crocuses up there in Nova Scotia,
Yeah,
don't you?
we do.
Yeah. You got any signs of a crocus coming out of the ground yet?
No.
Sorry,
No.
sorry, man.
It's all right. I can handle it. We'll be good in about another month anyway. So
Yeah,
look forward to it. Where I live, we have all kinds of flowers that the last homeowners that lived here, they planted exotic flowers everywhere. So they rebloom
Oh,
every
cool.
year. Yeah, I'll have to show
Cool.
you that someday. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's
How
great.
how close are you to the ocean?
About maybe half an hour away.
Oh, you're way inland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, there's several oceans around us, and then there's like straits, like they're
Yeah.
big bodies of water. So close to those. But we're surrounded by water in Nova Scotia. We're only connected by New Brunswick, really, to the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
So
I told you, New Brunswick's where my grandfather, my dad's father's from.
yep, you did tell me that.
I've been up there. I loved it.
Yeah, you should come back. I've been up there quite a bit too. So it's a nice spot. Beautiful spot. Come on, you should come to Nova Scotia. We got lots of stuff here for you to see too.
Okay. Can I bring my dog?
You can bring your dog. Yeah, my
All
dog, my
right.
stepdaughter would love it.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk to you next Friday, maybe if you're free, or this Friday, whenever.
Yeah.
All right,
Good.
I appreciate you doing the videos, and everybody seems to be loving them, so you know. So
Okay. Thanks,
okay,
Corey.
you're welcome. God bless you.
God bless you.